All right, we are now recording.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah. Can I have one of those cards? Thank you.
In 3. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to KeepingitRE. It's Hawaiian Shirt Day, at least for Chad. Coming to you live from our favorite happy hour and lunch spot in Tyson's, Earl's.
Hey, everybody, this is Chad Arnold. It's not necessarily a Hawaiian shirt, but thank you, Paul, for noticing. I appreciate it. Paige is here with us.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
So today we wanted to talk about a few points going on in the market. Paige, what do we got on the agenda for today?
Well, so first we definitely want to kick this off by starting out talking about Amazon and how they are no longer going to Long Island City. So what do you guys think about that?
Wow, that's a big piece of news for sure. I mean, you can't turn on the television without it on there. I think that, I think from what I've heard and what I've read, New York City just created an environment where Amazon did not want to be part of it. You know, they didn't want to move their headquarters there. They didn't want to work there. They weren't accepting them with open arms, which, I think everybody knows that Amazon loves to be doted on.
Right.
So when New York City didn't do it, they took their ball and went home.
What do you think, Paul?
That's a good way to put it. The big question now is, where do those employees go? Where do those 25,000 employees go? Do they come to Virginia? Do they go to Nashville? Do they stay put? What happens? I mean, obviously, this is going to be continuing news on and on and on, as it's been over the last 12, 15, 18 months. But it is a story. I think the most interesting piece to this, at least from a local level, is you have companies like Facebook and Google doing real estate transactions in Northern Virginia right now, and nobody's talking about it.
Right.
Nobody has any idea that Facebook and Google and Blackboard are doing things in Northern Virginia right now. Meanwhile, everybody's talking about Amazon.
Right. Well, they're the biggest, arguably one of the most powerful companies in the world right now. So, they do attract a lot of media attention. That's a good question about where that half of the HQ2 requirement was going to go. And, you can't help but to ask, did it really require 2 cities?
Right.
I mean, did they have to split it? Did they have a need for 2 locations? Maybe not. I mean, from our contacts here in Arlington, it doesn't sound like they're looking to move everybody here.
Well, so with that being said, do you actually think they are going to place everything here in Crystal City? Or do you think they're going to spread it out?
I don't know. Amazon says that they don't have any plans to increase the presence here, but they did reiterate that they are still coming here, that nothing for Arlington has changed, which is a good thing. So I don't know. I think anybody's guess is as good as mine or yours or Paul's. It's to be seen.
Yeah,
right.
Things aren't holding up in Arlington at all. News has been released that Amazon is going to be housing up to 1,500 people in a WeWork location in Roslyn between now and the time that HQ2 opens up. So it's for real, it's happening, it's coming quick. They need butts and seats, and it'll just be a matter of time to understand whether the requirement is actually 25,000 people or whether it's actually 50.
Right, yeah. I think the main point here is, I do believe that Amazon would have moved forward with New York, with Long Island City, if it weren't for the difficult environment, the politics that they created up there. It's a different state to work in than Virginia, and I think that made it difficult for Amazon, and they just decided that it wasn't worth the trouble and passed. So,
right.
Enough about Amazon.
Yeah. Well, moving on from Amazon, obviously there's a lot of things going on in the market, but most importantly, along with what you guys do every single day, what's your approach to representing a tenant in today's commercial real estate climate?
Paul, I'll let you start with that one.
Paul or Chad?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. It's a different market today than it was 18, 24 months ago. Things are changing. Companies are growing and expanding, but requiring less physical office space. So how do you adapt to that? How do you make something like that happen? How do you achieve a favorable office lease in a climate where it's very competitive for space? 2 years ago, if you took a 25,000 square foot block of space, there were a lot of options in Tyson's Corner, for instance. Now, it's not the case, and the spaces that are available are being competed by multiple companies. So how do you get strategic? How do you achieve it? And prices are rising as well. So, Chad?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is definitely a different environment than it was 2 years ago, for sure. And the approach that we take to representing our tenant clients has changed as well. It's not just about negotiating a low rental rate and a high tenant improvement allowance package anymore, which, so many brokers still feel like is the way to approach every piece of business. It's not about going in and pitching the client and selling them on why your particular company or you are the right answer. It's really understanding what that client's requirements are and taking that and figuring out how you can make a real estate transaction work for that particular client and their particular needs. Sometimes lowest rental rate and highest tenant improvement allowance is not the right answer. The higher the tenant improvement allowance, the longer term you have to sign. So a lot of tenants don't want to sign a long-term commitment anymore because that's a huge liability. So to your point, how do you make that particular space, maybe that's already built, that can accommodate a shorter term lease, work for that particular client? Sometimes it just frankly requires flexibility on the client's part. But we've got to look at it very differently today. It's a more strategic approach. You mentioned WeWork for Amazon. WeWork has done a great job at filling the gap for tenants that have short planning horizons. If you want a 6 or a 12-month lease term, you can't go in and build space from scratch to accommodate your needs. If you do, it's not going to be anything fancy, and it'll probably be in an older building that is somewhat obsolete. You go into a WeWork, there's no long-term commitment, and the place is hopping. I mean, you have that vibe, and it's beautiful space. That doesn't necessarily work for a lot of companies, and it certainly doesn't work if you're looking for long-term, but we really have to peel the layers of the onion back and figure out what exactly the client's requirements are, what their business is about, and take it from there.
Well, so with that being said, what do you guys think is the most important thing that tenants are actually looking for moving into a new space?
I think, moving into a new space is kind of a different point, but I think
Right.
when evaluating the entire process, I think flexibility is key, especially in this area. You have the federal government here, so most of the companies are doing some sort of business with the government. There's a lot of government contractor clients here, and most of the contracts that are funding their business are on 5-year contracts with the government, and most of those, the way that they're set up, is 1-year contracts with 4 1-year options.
Right.
So like Chad said, to build out an amazing and beautiful brand new space, if it requires a 7, 10, 12-year lease term, maybe that doesn't work for your particular building or for your particular business. So how do you create that flexibility? How do you achieve a space that's going to work well for your company, for your brand, where you can put a flag down and say, hey, this is our new HQ, without breaking the budget, without having to sign that incredibly long-term deal? How do you do that? I think flexibility is the most important thing when we're evaluating clients' needs, and also understanding that every single client is different. Things are important to certain companies that aren't to others.
Right.
And I think understanding that each strategic plan for each client is going to be slightly or very different.
Yeah, flexibility is huge, and that's frankly not to toot our own horn, but that's where we come in. In every transaction, there's a buyer, the tenant, and a seller, the landlord. That transaction has to work for both parties, and I think a lot of our competitors don't necessarily understand that. You really do have to finesse the deal. Landlords want long-term leases because they want their buildings to be financially stable. Tenants, in many cases, as Paul stated, require shorter term leases, especially in this particular market because it's so government contract heavy, that we have to kind of negotiate a term that works well for our client, but at the same time makes financial sense for the seller, in this case, the landlord. So, we're always fighting to get the best terms for our clients, and the key here is that it's got to work for them. But in terms of what, in addition to flexibility, what tenants are looking for, amenities are huge right now. Everybody wants to be on Metro. A lot of millennials are not driving.
Right.
They don't have cars. They don't want cars. They want to live in the city, walk everywhere. They don't want to own a car. They want to ride Metro. That's becoming
Paige
a challenge.
doesn't want a car so bad that she keeps wrecking her car
Yeah,
on
right.
purpose.
Paige
I'm not a bad driver,
tried to get rid of her
I
car.
Multiple times.
Didn't work.
I blame other people.
yeah.
Let's just put it out there.
But amenities are huge. On top of Metro, you want restaurants. They want affordable living. They want apartment buildings maybe that are a short Metro ride or walking distance to work. So these are all things, and you're seeing this as buildings evolve, where they're starting to build. And this we talk about Tyson's a lot. Tyson's is a perfect example where they're dramatically changing the landscape at Tyson's, and it is to accommodate the requirements of workers in these companies going forward. It's live, work, play, everybody in one spot.
Right.
What's important to you? You're new to the
As a
workforce,
millennial,
Paige.
as a millennial,
You're
Paige,
you're
what's
a millennial,
important?
right? I
You
mean,
know-
you graduated last year. This is your
I
first
did, yes.
career move.
Recent grad, USC. Go Gamecocks.
What's important to you? I mean, what gets you excited to come to work? I mean, what are the things that you're doing in the morning, afternoon, evening that gets you pumped to be in an environment like this?
Aside
So-
from us, of course.
And besides from being directly next door to Earl's, which is
Right,
also
exactly.
a plus.
Shout
Which,
out
by the way,
Earl's.
shout out Earl's today.
Great spot.
Yeah.
Yep. It's where we're filming today.
Hosting the podcast today.
Yes.
Thank you, Earl's.
Exactly. Actually, I'm glad you guys asked, because that kind of leads into a different question that I was thinking about. With all these amenities that everybody wants, like clearly the one thing that I look forward to in a working environment is the flexibility. Like you guys were talking about, the location, everything. I love, like, for example, how we are right next to the mall. Like, that's huge for me.
We've noticed.
Yeah. But a lot of things are taking a turn with the workplace, and a lot of people now, especially like my age, a little bit older, are working from home. Do you think that that's going to affect buying, selling, everything in our market?
I think it's an interesting topic, and I'm glad you bring that up. By the way, we need you in the office. So I hope this isn't can I start working from home?
Yeah, right.
I tried.
I think it works for some companies and for some people. I know I can't speak for you, but I know I can
Right.
speak for myself, and Chad and I have had this conversation multiple times. Chad and I cannot work from home.
Right.
I do not find efficiency from doing that. I need to be in the office with the vibe, with people around, things happening. That's when I can execute and do my job at a high level.
Right.
I can't do it from home. My wife is different. She does very good working from home, and you may too. But I think it's understanding the balance. It's understanding which employees excel with that type of flexibility, which employees do not, which employees excel in the actual office. And there's certain companies that it can work for, and certain companies that it's detrimental to.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's like everything else. It's what works for you.
Yeah.
You being the individual employee, the worker, and you being the company, right? Everybody's different. I'm like Paul, I cannot work from home.
Right.
I need to be in an active environment, but we also work as a team. It's very difficult to work at home by yourself, and you can't just pop out of your kitchen and have a conversation with somebody in the
Right.
office, or bounce ideas off of somebody, or hey, have you experienced this in a transaction before? We're constantly learning in this industry. Things change all the time. So having people like that at their fingertips, but there are other folks that can work from home just fine.
Right.
They're not on the phone, they're not interacting with other people. Maybe they're on email all day long. That works for them. Maybe they need quiet so that they can focus. So I think it really is, you'll see in the market, just by sheer volume of space being leased, says that the whole telecommuting thing hasn't been as big or successful as everybody thought it would be.
Right.
You know, if that was the case, you wouldn't see new buildings going up all over the place and them being fully leased almost before they come out of the ground. I mean,
Yeah.
we're filling these buildings up. Tenants are leasing space. We do leases all the time for tenants to come. And a lot of our clients are growing. They're bringing more people into the office. So I think it's really on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, so what do you think landlords are doing to attract tenants into the market?
Oh man, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, to take a little side turn off.
Yeah, landlords really have to be competitive today, and amenities are the key. You know, common areas. You know, you've got game rooms, you have shared spaces within these buildings that are free to tenants, by the way, the large conference rooms, community areas, places where tenants and companies can congregate, get you out of the office and into an area where you don't have to go to a Starbucks, but they're bringing the Starbucks, not literally, but that environment into the building.
Right.
And these buildings, like I said before, are evolving. It's not just four walls and where you can plop down in a seat and bang away at a keyboard all day long. They're really having to get competitive with amenities within the buildings to bring tenants in.
I actually think landlords are starting to meet in the middle with telecommuting only because everybody's trying to get the best gyms. Sleep rooms now, like nap rooms, are a big thing. And a lot of people, instead of actually working from home, will go take a nap, do whatever they got to do to step away,
And then go back
and then
home.
come back.
Yeah.
And then go back home.
Yeah, or go back home. So do you think that that's
Paul would like
what
to be
they're
able to
trying
take a nap
do?
in the office
Gosh,
with a 9-month-old at
definitely
home.
he's 7 months, not sleeping through the night yet. I take a nap from midnight to 2 a.m., then I take
Right.
another nap from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. I get plenty of naps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the amenities are key. I also think location. I mean, if you're not on Metro, if you don't have access to public transportation, and you don't have the amenities, you're in real trouble. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at a market like Reston or Tysons or Arlington, it's very clear who the haves are
Yeah.
and who the have-nots are.
Right.
It's obvious.
Right.
And if you're not putting money into your building to amenitize common work areas, you're in for it. And you know, a few years ago, people were looking for where can I get the lowest rental rate or where can I get the deal.
Right.
And now it's not as much like that. That you know, $34 a square foot compared to $38 a square foot isn't as important if the company or if the building is on Metro with amenities, because then they can take slightly less space and the economics work. I mean, look at our office, for instance. I mean,
Right.
we took less space. We moved to the best building in Tysons, arguably, Tysons Tower. We're on Metro, next to Earl's. Shout out Earl's.
Yep.
Next to the mall.
Yeah.
And we took less space and the economics work because...
That just reinforces the amenities conversation. We're a perfect example. You know, we downsized our space. We increased the number of heads that we put in that space, number of employees. And as much as we thought that this was going to be difficult and how can we ever squeeze into this small space, it's actually been phenomenal. It increases the buzz in the office. There's a lot of activity. You don't realize the fact that the offices are smaller, that the workstations are smaller, that the actual size is smaller. But, you know, we got a much better building and a much better location, and it works out great. I mean, we're out of the office all the time anyway, but I think a lot of companies, back to the amenities thing, when you have the ability to get outside of the office and meet in a conference room down in a common area, that also enables companies to reduce their footprint and they don't have to pay for that space.
Right.
So, you know, that's big. Amenities, again, key. That's what the landlords are having to do today to compete and get tenants.
Right.
Well, you know, we're running out of time here at Earl's. They're about to open up. Thank you, Earl's, for letting us use your space.
Thank you, Earls.
Thank you.
Paige, final thoughts?
Everyone just make sure they're keeping it RE. Stay tuned with our podcast.
Put you on the spot.
Check
I know,
us
I'm
out
not bringing it on the
on
spot.
check us out on iTunes podcast, SoundCloud, and on our YouTube channel.
Thanks for keeping it RE.
Thanks, guys.